In preparation for its 2-hour season finale, the cleaning lady delivers a kind of episode that helps it bounce back from the kind of lukewarm episodes it's been delivering thus far. For the first topic, we're going to go into the growing issue of where Tony's loyalties lie. Luca has just turned 6, and even though this is a major milestone, with him having fluid in his lungs and him still in a very sickly state, Tony is still very much about who can best help me keep my son alive. So with that in mind, her running into Armand at the clinic and him talking about getting drugs to kill Robert sets off red flags. Her going to Nadia and Nadia not want to be of much help is setting off red flags because continually there's the sign that Tony is not trying to pay back what Nadia sacrificed in terms of her marriage and relationship, never mind what Armand has sacrificed in doing so much not only to keep Luca alive but keep Tony alive as well. And then there's Garrett. Garrett is explicitly told not to go after Armand because he's needed in order to get to Robert. But being that Tony's trying to figure out any way possible to stop Armand and Nadia an extension from killing Robert, she decides to pretty much snitch on Armand, give Garrett the number to Armand's burner phone, and with that, Garrett may not kill Armand, he may not arrest Armand, but he does finally get all the information needed to understand what happened to Maya. And in the process of that, he learns not only was Tony involved, but Tony also outright lied to him in order to keep Garrett in her back pocket, which, as you can see, is just making it so that nobody's going to be able to trust her. Which leads us to our second topic. JD and Fiona are at the point where, with his potentially made-up girlfriend Laura out of the picture, JD and Fiona are back together, or at least they're on the process to being back together because they're making out, and it seems like he wants to have another go of them becoming a family. But one of the problems with doing that is Tony's in the picture, and Fiona's at Tony's beck and call, so while JD understands it's family, much less Luca needs somebody when, Tony has to run errands and stuff like that. When he comes over to the house and he gets accosted by one of Robert's bodyguards that's protecting Tony after the whole Sin Cara fiasco, he realizes that Tony's in too deep and she's probably not going to get out. And if Fiona wants to be part of his life, never mind Jazz's life, she has to make a decision. Either she's going to stick with Tony and go down this crazy ass road that Tony's on, or she's going to get out that life, have strict boundaries from Tony, and eventually just be with JD and live some type of normalcy. Now, which way she gonna go is hard to say, but let's be real. JD just came back. Tony's been part of Fiona's life for how many years now, so her separating from someone who was literally her sister-in-law and probably feels like a legitimate blood sister at this point, it may be hard for Fiona to just let go of that. Which leads us to the last topic, which is simply Nadia pretty much got the job done and she was able to use the drugs that Armand got, and she nearly got Robert killed. He was having a cardiac arrest episode, heart attack, however you want to put it, and he was literally on the ground. But because Tony has good timing, or bad timing in the case of Armand and Nadia, she shows up, keeps him alive long enough for the paramedics to come, and by the end of the episode, he's alive and his paranoia skyrocketed because he wants to know what's his toxicology report, and more than likely he's going to start investigating who might have attempted to kill him, and more than likely that's going to play into the season finale where somebody's going to die. It's not clear who's going to die, but somebody's going to die for trying to mess with him. And considering he's at the point where he highly values Tony, he highly values Nadia, and Armand is still kind of like a cockroach that just refuses to die, he may really put a hit on Armand to make sure he's out of the picture, especially since Armand's trying to make little side deals and try to rebuild his reputation in ways that I won't say that Robert's going to see as him trying to compete with him, But based off of Garrett and Russo making it seem that between drug trafficking, human trafficking, and more, that he's kind of starting to approach Robert's territory, this might be the final straw for Robert, and this might be all the excuse he needs to never mind how Tony feels, never mind how Nadia feels, and to finally get rid of Armand once and for all. So the first highlight for us is just JD and Fiona getting back together, for that means potentially that Fiona may have her own storyline again. For at this point, Fiona's storyline about, trying to establish herself, especially with the cleaning lady service, it's kind of been put on the back burner, and she's back to being Tony's lackey. If Tony needs something, especially regarding Luca, she's then and there, and it's kind of a disservice to the character. So with JD coming back into the picture, granted, it's unfortunate that it requires her being in a relationship to kind of get bolstered a bit, but at the very least, it could lead to some resolution regarding her storylines. It could resolve the whole her being undocumented thing, and maybe Chris too. And since he took part in her business, and who knows when he's starting his teaching job, that could mean we can see that lady whose name I can't remember, and her coming back on, and just getting to see Fiona be Fiona De La Rosa rather than Tony's babysitter, confidant, and whatever Tony needs at any time. The second highlight for us is just how much Robert's paranoia is going to come into play, especially now that there's been an attempt on his life. And one of the reasons why that's going to be so interesting is I think Robert feels that he's so insulated that the fact that somebody got to him to the point of poisoning him, that's going to make Joseph, his bodyguard, Nadia, Armand, Tony, it's going to make him think anybody and everybody in his circle could possibly be his killer. And with the way that he is, more than likely, someone's going to die. And granted, I'm still not 100% sure Robert's going to make it past the season finale, but if he goes out, I'm pretty sure he's taking someone down with him. The next highlight for us is just Armand trying to rebuild his reputation. For quite some time, it seems that after the fall of Hayek and Armand again have some type of power using what he built with him, Armand pretty much became lackey status, and he kind of put some work into La Habana, but really it was Nadia who was doing all the work. So with him trying to siphon off of some of what he started with Tony, maybe there's some kind of chance he can rebuild his reputation, maybe build himself a new empire. But one thing I'm also hoping that comes out of this is that with Armand going back in, even though he spent a good amount of time trying to have one last score, maybe they may finally start to develop how he got into this life, and not just in the whole his parents were working for Hayek and this is how he got into that, but really do some type of dive into his past, and maybe even bring up his parents in terms of us getting to see them and understand the effect of him taking this life. Because if there's one thing that's kind of sucky about how things have gone this season, is that we keep having these opportunities to learn about Tony's life back in Manila. We keep seeing these different opportunities to get more of Nadia's backstory, but it's not coming in. I'm at least hoping for Armand, who has given us something, that they may really try to dig in deep and show how he got into this endless cycle. The last highlight for us is Tony showing her loyalty is really just to Luca, and everybody else is just the ends to a means. This to me is a major highlight because with the finale teasing somebody may die, there's always a chance that rather than being Armand, Chris, rather than it being, who knows, Fiona or even Garrett, or of course Robert, what if Luca dies? Because if Luca dies, that pretty much means that Tony will have to start a whole new chapter, because her husband is dead, her son will be dead, and then when you add in that she has really no reason or desire to go back to Manila, that means this new life she has as a cleaning lady, that's all she has. And whether or not she decides to try to make a break for it and just be a cleaning lady with Fiona, or take on all this investment that Robert has put into and really do something with it, that could be something interesting to see. Especially since with Luca dying because he couldn't get the care he needs, that'll probably amplify her wanting to do the clinic, wanting to really help people, and it could be the jolt that this show needs in terms of pushing Tony to be a little bit more vicious and not having something like Luca to kind of bridle or rein her in. Which leads us to the on-defense topic, which is pretty much just expecting Nadia to be a bit more torn about killing Robert. And maybe the problem is for me that as much as Nadia is a ride or die type of character, and yes, she has been exposed to the violence that Hayek has caused, Armand, and also Robert's lifestyle, she hasn't killed anyone so far. So for her to just easily be able to like poison Robert and there not being any type of mental emotional bothering in terms of it, it seemed kind of odd to me. And granted, she has a full femme fatale look when it comes to this episode, but again, it's kind of this need to want to have some backstory to know how did she get here. Like, what was the final straw at Robert that made it so that she decided to leave him? Because it was noted that he was scaring her or something like that, but scaring her how? Scaring her by stalking her? Scaring her by doing the same things that, Armand has done for who knows how long? Like, what was that final straw that made it so that she decided to leave this man for Armand? And even when it comes to Armand, it's kind of the question of how did those two meet again? Because maybe I'm just somebody who likes when they repeat things, so it's like fresh in my memory or not. But I feel like there's so much that's missing in terms of everyone's backstory, how they met, that it's starting to become a little bit frustrating. Not frustrating to the point where it's one of those long-running, actually it could kind of be seen as a long-running issue, but I guess what I'm trying to say here is I get that this show wants to move forward. It doesn't want to dwell too much on the past, but lacking this past is perhaps the reason why this show's foundation doesn't seem stable enough to really kind of wonder and ponder what its future is. Overall, our feelings right now is that this 2-hour season finale is going to pretty much make or break The Cleaning Lady. Either that's going to be when it shows that it can live up to all its potential, learn how to pace out its story and not make it so that it has so much filler in these high moments to try to compensate, or pretty much it's just going to keep doing what we've seen a lot during this sophomore slump where it just doesn't deliver on its potential, instead just completely wastes every single character, every single storyline they could possibly pursue, and instead just rely on these big moments that ultimately kind of fall flat.